Good afternoon and welcome to the Living Well radio program. You can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 Anchorage, as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. You can also catch us online at katb.org. My name is Cammie, and I'm joined today with my co-host Betty. How are we doing today, Betty?
Very good. I have my water, just had my snack, and we're ready to go.
Did you have another bagel?
No.
Tom would be giving you such a hard time if he knew
would.
you were having a bagel again.
No, I had my nuts and my cheese.
You did. What a healthy snack.
Am I being good or what?
You are being so good.
Until
That's
I
good,
leave.
Good encouragement and motivation. We are so excited to be joined today by our guest, Crystal Hoffman, wife of Ron Hoffman, who is the associate pastor here at Anchorage Baptist Temple. And together they serve in a ministry called Frontline. And Crystal has been serving with her husband right by his side for the last, how many years is it now, Crystal? I know you recently just celebrated your pastoral anniversary.
We did, 20 years. We've been here together for 25 at the church, but we didn't come on staff, considered it full-time. And so we just celebrated 20 years of being full-time staff. So a really neat mark of time in our lives.
Yes, absolutely. And what we're going to be talking to Crystal about today is they have recently transitioned and been serving faithfully for many years in the youth ministry, but have recently been led a new direction into young adult ministry. So we're excited to talk with you about what that's looked like and kind of gain some wisdom and insight based on what you've seen with your many years of service. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I just kind of want to get us started by having you share with us the backstory about how you and Ron initially got involved in serving together many years ago.
Well, I lived here in 1980, from 1980 on, and I left for a couple years with my parents. We moved. We met up again, Ron and I did, at Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. So we got married while we were in school, but when we graduated, we came back here. And in the very beginning, we were teaching at Anchorage Christian Schools, and that was just a neat opportunity. And I think just through that, knowing that we were teaching on the high school level, we decided we might as well volunteer in the high school department. So that was in the fall of 1991 that we started volunteering, and that was kind of the inception of it all. And through the years, maybe a youth pastor would leave, and so a preacher would say, Ron, will you take over the youth group while we're trying to hire a new youth pastor? And eventually he just said, Ron, you're the one who's always here. Will you just take over the youth department for us? And so it began like that.
Did you start in the junior high, or have you always been with the senior high group?
Well, we were with senior high, and at one point, the junior high pastor was gone, so we stepped down into the junior high level for just 2 years. And at that mark of 2 years, we then moved up with the senior high group. So we really even had a group of young people that we had 7th through 12th grade, where they just had us as their youth pastor that whole time. And so just a couple of years we did junior high. But Cammie, you and I work with the junior high on Sunday morning. So even though it's been a lot of the focus on the senior high, we knew we needed to reach down to those junior high young people and try to build relationships with them so that when they got to senior high age, they weren't so intimidated by, coming up into high school and not knowing anybody. So junior high and high school has for 25 years, that's been our ministry.
Now, did you guys have children yet when you started serving in this ministry?
We had one. We had our oldest daughter, Jacqueline. She's 25. We had her. But the others were born during our ministry, which can be intimidating. When you're working with high school students, you have little ones. They are learning and seeing way too much for their age. When your little one looks at you and rolls their eyes, you know they've been watching teenagers a little too much. But we were always really keen on allowing our children to be a part of our ministry, but being wise about that as well. But it's hard to tell a parent parenting advice about their teenager when they're looking at you and thinking you have toddlers. So it did come with its challenges.
Sure,
that is for sure. But
now, as you endeavored into serving in youth ministry, did it present challenges that you didn't anticipate? Was it more of a challenge than you thought it would be? Tell us about that.
Probably when the children were young, just because I knew that our children had to be first and foremost my ministry. So I couldn't be out and about all the time with the teenagers and neglecting my own ministry, my own children. So, but I think the way that I really tried to do that is I'd tell young people I can meet at 9 o'clock. The kids will be in bed, come on over at 9 o'clock and we'll sit down and we'll talk for a while. Or I tried to find moments that it didn't clash. But I think when they were younger, those were the things that I was just really conscientious of, because we'd like to think that we can really change the course of young people. But if we fail to change the course of our own children's lives, that's when ministry then becomes a resentment for our children, or the typical, what they say, pastor's kid. They go off and they make all the wrong choices because you were so busy helping someone else. So we are really conscientious of that, and gratefully I can say all three of our children love ministry. So, somewhere in there the Lord really helped guide us as we are doing that, because our children don't resent ministry. They love ministry. So I think anybody in ministry has to just be very cautious of balancing the time with your own family, but yet still serving. So as they got older, it was easier because the teenagers then just were always at the house. There was always a mouth to feed, plus 10 more.
And when you say always, you mean always. And we'll get to that.
I do.
Now, with that many years serving in a youth ministry, surely you probably saw some changes in the culture of young people. How did you see the challenges change over the course of those years that you guys were having to deal with?
To adjust.
Yeah.
It's so true. I hate to say it, but in the beginning of our ministry, we had a lot of young people that had mom and dad. We stereotype, but our churches are not immune to divorce situations. And in the beginning, we had a lot of intact families, and we dealt with young people who we were reiterating what they were hearing at home. Over the years, we began to see a lot more brokenness in our own church kids. And through that brokenness, the message that we were saying was not always reiterating what they were hearing. Well, my mom, has a new boyfriend, and, they're living together. And so when we're saying things like, the Lord desires purity and et cetera, it doesn't necessarily mean that was the message that they were witnessing at home. And so that definitely became difficult. I think another thing that comes to my mind is disrespect. In the beginning, I felt like parents would back us. Hey, this happened. I'll talk to my young person about it. As you got older, it was, well, what did you do wrong? Because my young person is certainly not doing anything like that, And so you didn't have the support. You had disrespect on the young person and a little bit more lack of support from the parents. So, Satan knows what he's doing in destroying our families.
Yep.
He knows that, and that's why he attacks them so vigorously. But I think that was probably some of the biggest challenges, was just seeing more and more the decline of our homes and even in our churches, our church families.
Yeah, and the parents really just relying on the church to instill these morals and values in their children versus taking the time to instill them themselves.
Absolutely. And if they're not seeing it at home as much as we want to try, and this is what God's word said, and this is the way you need to live, it sounds good, but they're seeing a different picture, and they're going to do what they see more than they're going to do what they just hear.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Crystal, you have recommended a book. You said you have recommended it probably hundreds of times, not only to parents probably, but to a lot of teenagers. Can you share with us something about that book?
Is that the book Bondage Breakers?
No, it's the other one.
Oh, no, don't put me on the spot. Praying for Your Elephant. I'm trying to think,
be a
because
good one.
I just had a young girl yesterday, and she texted me. She now lives in Florida. I love it when I still hear from young people. She texts me, and she's like, "What you reading?" And I literally took a picture, because I'm like, how do I even quantify this? And I laid out probably 15 books that I have right now that I'm, just going through. I'm a book, Ken Ham, with Answers in Genesis. I love it. He wrote a book, Already Gone, how the kids are walking out our door, and referring to our church doors when they're young. And then he's also written a follow-up one, Ready to Return. And because that's now the generation we're working with, I've been reading that book, Ready to Return. Always reading books on prayer. Parenting, you got to help me. I recommend to me The Fruitful Wife.
Those are all good. Those are all good.
Yeah. Bondage Breakers is one that I buy in quantities of 10, and I literally pass out to people because while I want us to have a great awareness and awe of who God is, we have to be aware of who our enemy is and what he is trying to do and destroy us. And so it's one of those, keep your eyes on Jesus, fix your eyes on him, but be aware of what Satan is doing to destroy your life every single day. And if we are not, putting on our armor every day, we are going to be swallowed up in this culture.
Yeah.
So
No doubt about that.
yeah. So if you think about, I'm trying to think what other books I recommend, because I definitely
Do you
am
know
a
what you're
reader.
thinking of, Betty?
Yeah, it's about something like It Doesn't Affect Me, or
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's a funny one. Just because on a page, Cammie, it'll be a book, and you open it up, but literally in huge font, probably 36 font, it'll say "Not me," and then the next page will just only have like 4 words. Are you crazy?
Oh, really?
So you tell somebody, I want you to read this book. It is called "But It Doesn't Affect Me," and they feel intimidated because they look at the book, but then as soon as they open it, you're like, you can read this book in 30 minutes, just because it's just cartoon pictures and just really trying to help you think. And the idea behind the book is Colossians 2:8, where everything is some man's philosophy. If you are not, engaged in the Bible and reading God's word, everything else, a TV program, a movie, music, it is somebody's philosophy that they're trying to promote through whatever source of media that they're doing. And we can't hope that we can be so engaged in our culture through all of those sources of entertainment and then hope to live a victorious Christian life. And so, yes, that is a funny one. And I do. When kids come over, I'm like, I need you to read this right now. And they look at me like, what? I can't read a book.
Does it look like it's rather thick? Or
It does.
Really?
Oh, it looks like it'd be a 200-page
Oh,
book.
really?
But then, of course, when you open it, you realize it. Literally, I sat one night with them and had them read it because I'm not a TV watcher, but they were telling me just about some of the television programs and what they now put on the television. And I was amazed. So I was like, okay, right now I'm pulling out this book. We're going to sit here and read it together. I was kind of like a teacher. Follow along, students. We had a good laugh about it. But
Sure.
I can't tell you how many times that they will, kind of comment to me, ooh, but it doesn't affect me. Yes, it is.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I won't use your analogy right there, but it's so fitting about the brownies and what
It
I don't
is.
know if we can.
Are we allowed to
I
say
don't
that on
know.
air?
It really sticks with you once you hear it. So why don't you go ahead
Can
and
I?
share it with us?
So, we tend to negate the little things. So you watch a movie, a television show, and maybe there's characters or sexual scenes or vulgar language, whatever it might be. And you tend to think, oh, well, it's just one little thing. And so the analogy is that as a mom, you bake brownies. And right before the kids get ready to eat them, you're like, oh, wait, I put in, now, I use a box. I'd be opening Duncan Hines or something. But let me try to think of ingredients that would be in brownies. I'm sure things like sugar and flour and
Possibly.
butter. Yeah. But the idea is, kids, I put all the ingredients in there and I just added a little bit of poop. Well, no way, Mom. I'm not going to eat any brownies with a little bit of poop in it. And that's the analogy.
Yeah.
We watch television and we think that little bit of poop is not going to affect us, but it does. And it does. And so, so I have to look at my kids sometimes and they're like, Mom, as soon as you walk in the room, this show had this. And I'm like, right. I'm like, a little bit of poop, right? So, yeah, we joke around.
Had you heard that before, Betty? It'll stick with you.
without a doubt.
It'll convict you more than you've ever been convicted now.
Which, of course, now when I fix brownies at my house, everybody looks at me who's heard my analogy. They're like, are the brownies safe? Yes, I promise the brownies are safe.
So, Crystal, as I mentioned earlier, you're no stranger to me, and I know as well as Betty that your home is really just a revolving door. You always have, whether it be a group of people there, an individual there just needing counseling, people just needing fellowship and family, and to see what that looks like. But why have you found it to be important to bring your ministry outside of the church and even more importantly to your own home?
I can't take credit for that vision. I really do have to give that to my husband. My husband lost his family when he was very young, and a family adopted him. A family took him in when his parents had passed away and he lost an uncle and a grandpa and, sisters were all older, those kind of things. And a family took him in. And I think because of that, and my husband definitely, he'll say all the time, thank the Lord that those things happened because I wouldn't be where I am now. But because of that heart, that went from the time I married him, we have had probably at some point in our lives in varying degrees, people living with us or some type of ministry going on in the home like that. And it truly is because of him, because I was an only child almost. I have 2 older brothers, but they were so much older. So, one of those, what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. So sharing like that was very hard for me in the beginning, just having such an open home. And so, but my husband totally had that vision that that's what our home would be. And I think with teenagers it's very different. He coached, so it'd be after school and kids would be over and we'd be helping with homework, or then it turned into we'll feed you dinner, and then where are your parents, and you know what, here's some bedding, sleep on the couch tonight, we'll get you to school in the morning. It just, I think with teenagers it just became a live life with them, and just do a lot with them. And you can't do that when you're just in Sunday school Sunday morning. You walk in, you see them, but that's not where they learn to live life. And I read a book one time called Be With Mentoring. And the idea is not just that we mentor, sitting down one-on-one somewhere, but that they live life with us. And so that just became something, have to go to the grocery store. I'm sure there's a teenager who would just like somebody to hang out with, which is fun for me, somebody to go grocery shopping. But for them, they loved just to get out of their own home. And so whether it was just having somebody live life with you and let them see Christ in you, how you're going to respond when somebody pulls out in front of you in your car, or the rude person at the grocery store, just different things like that. That they're watching your life and they're wanting to see how do you live. And I'll never forget when a young man called us, and it was after his 5th anniversary, and he said, I want you guys to know that I never saw how marriage should be except for when I was in your home. Wow. And he said, I was a single, he was brought up by a single mom and never knew his father. And so it just made me realize how important it was for young people to have that. And I think once I realized that selfishness in you that doesn't want to always share your home, that just wants your home to be your sanctuary and your own personal space all the time, I really realized that this is what they have to have. They have to be able to have a tangible picture of how a loving family can operate in a marriage that isn't perfect, but, loving and trying to, serve the Lord. So having people in our home just brings down walls too. It's one thing to say, we'll meet at the church. It's another thing to say, come snuggle on the couch, put your feet up and throw a blanket and let's just sit and talk. Yeah. And I think that breaks down walls. And so we've always dedicated our homes to the Lord and said, Lord, use it. And so that's...
Well, and I think what's been encouraging to me to observe you guys over the years and how you really just do ministry as a part of your life. It's not just something you show up and clock in and clock out of, but the message in that is that anybody can do ministry, because you don't have to necessarily be the head of some large organization or a large group of people. It's just being willing to open your home and your heart and love on people. And anybody can essentially do that if they're just willing to do that. So
yeah. And loving people gets messy. Yeah. Lots of people have lots of hurts. And so it's not always easy. And a lot of times people don't want to take that time, because it's a huge sacrifice of your time to set aside your own agenda to make people your life. But it's so rewarding. I have to say that. I love every minute of it. A group of girls left the other night and they're like, did you notice it's before 1:00 and we're leaving? And I was like, this is kind of weird. I'm not used to it.
Now, how did you do that, though, when the children were younger? Did you have to establish some boundaries, or were you more just able to take care of the children and kind of keep them in their routine while Ron kind of fulfilled the gaps there? How did you guys manage that? Or did the Lord just kind of take care of those details as you went?
Kind of. If it was a serious time that we were really talking life and situations, maybe the kids wouldn't be there present, or we'd do it like I said, later in the evening. But I really feel like my children learned a lot of lessons of don't do that by just being around and hearing the young people and just listening to them and the changes and the choices that they were going through and making. And so my kids just, I don't want to say I kept them away from all of it. I tried to be cautious. Again, your kids grow up quickly when they're around teenagers. So I tried to be cautious, but I think it was learning for them as well, being a part of it. I wasn't a super strict parent with bedtime either.
It's so refreshing to hear that to me. I've always felt like I've been off the grid with that one.
No, I taught my children, self-govern yourself. In the morning, you're still going to get up. And you have to get up at this time. So get yourself in bed at whatever time you're going to be able to get up in the morning and function. So, so anyhow, yeah, we did definitely do late nights. And it was one of the reasons why we also decided to homeschool. It was like, wow, getting up at 7 in the morning for school is really tough. If we could start the day at, 8, that would be a much easier time. So, another story, but.
Now, recently, after 20 years with the youth, you've got a promotion.
We graduated.
You graduated out of the youth group after 20 years,
yes.
And now you're working with what is called Frontline, which is the young adult ministry at Anchorage Baptist Temple. Can you share with us what that transition has been like?
Wow. Yeah. I went to college. When you go from high school to college, it's a whole new world. I have loved the transition. It has been challenging, but I know it's what God wanted, because I think after all of our years doing high school, at times it was like, I got this. We've been doing this for a long time. I know this situation. I can handle, it just came easy at that point after so many years of working with the teenagers. And so moving up into young adults was like, whoa, I don't have this anymore. Lord, you've got to do this. And so I think that was one of the things God really wanted to do, was just say, listen, I don't want this to be about what you can do and how many years you've been doing this. And not that I didn't trust the Lord for still, help me every time I'd sit down with a young person, just, Lord, as I hear this person, give me wisdom and discernment. So you are always asking for that. But it was like, okay, the Lord just saying, I'm ready to grow you. So our youngest son, our last child, went off to college. And I asked the Lord, what is this next stage of life going to look like? And as you both know, I ended up really sick. And the Lord taught me during that season to be still and know that He is God. And He immersed me in time with Him. So 1 year later, when we graduated, we're done with the high school ministry as far as being the senior high youth pastor, and moved up into the young adults, I could see that whole year of why God had brought me through that illness to teach me that I had to be back at His feet. I had to not be operating out of almost just, routine. It had to be completely Him. And so I love what God has done in me to draw me to Him and spend so much more time with Him. The needs are vastly different in young adults than high schoolers. And as you've heard me say, in high school, Cammie, we say this often with our junior high girls, we feel like we get to prevent. We try to. That ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yes.
We get to share things with them and try to encourage them, like, don't make this choice. Make this choice. Go down this path. This is, these kind of decisions. Show me your friends. I'll show you your future. Start making the right friend choices. And now that we're with the young adults, we're out of prevention and we're in damage control. And this is where they've made decisions. They maybe have left the church. Now they're trying to come back. They've, made choices that have created addictions, and now they're struggling with those. And so it's not like you get to do that be with mentoring almost quite as much, because they have jobs and they're working. And it's not like you can just call them and let's go do this. They're literally working and functioning in their own lives. And so the time needed for the young adults is very different. And I have definitely found that the needs have required me to be at the feet of Jesus, pleading with Him for mercy, for wisdom, for guidance as we try to help guide. So I've loved it. I've moved from chicken nuggets and nachos and cheap American cheese slices to like, oh no, adult food. What do adults
To casseroles and pastas.
like, what do adults eat? Like the other night, I was so proud of myself. I fixed chicken salad. I was like, women, they can appreciate chicken salad in the time it takes to cut up all the teenagers. They just eat in such massive quantities. They'd never appreciate it. So I've had to learn, like, how do you cook for what is grown-up food?
That's cute.
So that's been a fun part of it as well. But I've also found young adults they'll eat nacho stilts.
Right. No, I
Well,
love
also
nachos.
with young adults, there's a little bit more freedom. You don't need parental permission.
Yeah.
They usually can drive.
Yeah, rides home, taking.
And hopefully they stay and help clean up.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
there are, I guess you could say, advantages.
Very much so. Very, very much so. And I really feel like I have friends because of just they're grown up. And you know, it's a fine line. You don't want to cross certain boundaries, or you want to mentor. It's like your own children. You know, you're the mother. While they're growing up, you have to, have a level. And so while they are the teenagers, and while some of them would be friends, we do things together, it still was a cautious boundary of I still have to be an authority in their life. And with the young adults, while, a few of them called me just last night and we were chatting a little bit over something, while I still get to answer questions and try to mentor and guide them through things, I still feel like it's friends, and that's a neat thing. So,
Are we going to try to do a part 2, Betty?
I think so. There's lots more she has to say.
I know. We've only got Crystal for about 3 more minutes, and I've got a list of questions still. So
maybe I need to quit talking so much.
No, we can't get enough. This is wonderful. But why don't we, before we close out that show, at least share with us, what is the mission of Frontline? What is kind of the overall objective and mission in that ministry?
Well, our tagline is where Christ and culture collide. And we as Christians we have to live differently in the culture that we are in. And keeping that thought in mind, what we teach, what we try to instill is, if you are not living for Jesus Christ, if you are not clashing and colliding with the culture, you are being absorbed by the culture. And as Christians, when we choose Jesus Christ, we can't just decide that we are going to have Jesus fit into the rest of our schedule. He has to be our schedule. And so that right there, and just to give you just that little nugget right there, that's what we are trying to jump from in everything that we are doing, is colliding. Does your Christian life collide with culture? And if it doesn't, we are going to challenge you for why. Is Jesus Christ real in your life?
And I think we'll leave everybody with that cliffhanger, and we'll go into part 2 and at least finish up our questions. May or may not be a full program, but one way or another, we're going to get some more wisdom from you, Crystal, and just find out more about what Frontline Ministries is doing and the ways that it's addressing the needs of young adults in today's culture that kind of go along with your mission. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank
and
you very
we
much.
look forward to having you back next week.
Okay.
Thank you. And that's another Living Well program. And you can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage or KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. And you can also catch us online at katb.org.